What's up, everybody? Welcome to the podcast. Still yet to have a name, but this is the second podcast. I've got Parker Gelber on here. This is one of the best guests I could possibly get on. I think he has one of the greatest stories. When I think of Parker, right, he's the guy who's super young, who's living the life that anybody at any age is wanting to live, right? Exotic cars. You know, I remember first hanging out with you, right? You're in the Rolls Royces and I'm in my Chevy Equinox. That's like
You've come a long way now.
Right. So I appreciate you hopping on, man. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Parker Gelber. I own RP Exotics. That was the first business I started about 5 years ago. Actually 5 years ago this month. And I also own Modern Moving Company, furniture, home, and residential storage company. So those are my two operations.
So how does you're 20, you just turned 23. So how does a young guy like yourself get into the exotic car industry, right? And starts buying and selling exotic cars?
Man, when I was 14, 15, I started consuming all of the that was when Gary Vee and Andy Frisella were becoming like the men, and those videos were popping off. So I started consuming all the Gary Vee content, all the Frisella content. It was like, one, go work, and two, do things for free just to get industry knowledge. And I wasn't good at sports. Like I needed some sort of after school activity. So I figured, okay, I'll go try and apply at an exotic car dealership. Well, they turned me down, and then Waterway Car Wash turned me down. And so then I just kept trying to go to car shows and meet people in the industry. And eventually I met the owner of the first place I applied, convinced him to give me a job at like $8 an hour cleaning cars and posting stuff on Instagram for one of his new companies. And so I worked there cleaning cars for the first year. After that, I started to help sell cars, help the salespeople, and I really found a passion in buying cars. So they were launching a wholesale operation. I was getting paid $200 just to buy a car, whether it was a Dodge Challenger or a Ferrari. And that was my high school experience every day. Sophomore through my senior year and senior summer, I was just buying cars, and eventually.
And were they in your name, or were they consignments?
No. So at the time, I was working for Danny. Now he was doing some brokering at Exotic Motors. We were doing consignments, and then a lot of wholesale. So wholesale was kind of like the name of the game at the time. The market was a lot slower, and it was more of how do you buy something and make a quick flip to another dealership and just keep cars moving. And so it was my job to go out and find cars. So I would just scour the internet, find private sellers, call them, try and buy their car, find another dealership that would pay a little bit more money.
Sophomore year in high school.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was great. So again, like at the time, I mean, I think the first car I sold was like a 2004 Dodge pickup for $4,000, you know, and then a Dodge Challenger. And then there was a time where, you know, some of the guys were out of town. Somehow I ended up with a lead on a package of a Ferrari, a Nissan GTR, and I want to say it was a Porsche 911 or something. And I got the cars bought, and those were like the first time I bought some real exotics. I was 17.
And how did you just have really good connection with like people? Is that how you got those sold, or were you marketing them on Craigslist?
At the time, the dealership kind of handled the sales process. Like it was just, Parker, your job is to find a car, find a guy who's willing to sell. We'll give you the number that you can pay for it and go get it bought. And so that was really where I spent most of my time focusing. I didn't spend a whole lot of time on the sales side until like my final year with them, where I started also being a part of getting the cars laid down. So finding the other dealer and using that, I just started to kind of gain connections from meeting people in the industry and making calls. But it was the beginning thing was just started as an internship, and I just stuck with it. Really loved it.
And you were a porter for, did you say a year?
Yeah, probably the first year or so.
Okay. And what was that like? Were you just like, I need to make more money, or?
Yeah, I just didn't want to. I was really friendly with all the customers, and I think they were willing to give me a chance because, you know, the kid who was cleaning cars in the back selling parts was also bringing people in. So like I would go to every car show. I'd shake hands with everyone. Any way I could help someone. So if I could get them a free detail, or I could host a party at the dealership that the owner would let me. And like I was just trying to meet as many people as possible. I didn't really know what direction that would go. I didn't want to be a wholesaler. I didn't plan on owning a dealership. I just knew that I was surrounded by great people.
And you were providing value to them to be able to really help the business grow everything. Yeah, that's the person on the team that we always want to find, right? That's hard to find.
Yeah, the cheapest one brings in all the customers.
And those people all end up becoming entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They only last so long. So
I haven't found that quite yet in my store, but I'm like, man, when I do, that's going to be the next me to go, start his thing.
Maybe they'll go start another location or something like that. Yeah, it's time will tell there. So at that time, were you like big into muscle cars, or were you like, I only like Ferraris or Lambos?
Yeah, I was like, I didn't grow up a car kid, and I didn't really know much. Like I started studying them and learning about them. I liked Ferraris and Lambos. I never cared about anything that was like older than me. I never cared about classic cars. And the dealership I was at didn't really either. So like it was all the new exotic stuff. And so fast forward to me going to SLU in 2018. I was going to study entrepreneurship. Had no idea what direction I was going to go. I was going to kind of try and do like part-time school, part-time working for Exotic Motors. And there was a moment where I decided it made more sense for me to try and just go out on my own, especially while I was studying entrepreneurship. And so on September 6th of 2018, I started RP Exotics. I had a friend of mine put a logo together and a website for me. I traded him my DJI Phantom drone because I couldn't afford to pay for it. And the first few cars on my website were total BS. Like one was my personal car that I'd be willing to sell. It was
what was that?
Like 160,000 mile 2010 Range Rover.
Okay.
It's probably worth 10 grand. And then so I actually did sell that, and I had that Charger Hellcat I was leasing. Or I'd put friends' cars on there. I was just trying to build a brand, start building connection. I was wholesaling cars, so I would I'd meet a guy at a car show and say, hey, for $500, I'll list your car on eBay and Auto Trader, and I'll sell it for you. And it worked. About a month later, I sold like my first car with it and started just kind of building up from there.
So do you like, because initially the first business I ever wanted to start was, like a small car dealership or something like that. So I'm always like, why am I not in Parker's shoes, right?
Yeah.
Why am I not doing that? I went the wrong direction here. So do you need a dealer's license, or did you at the time, or isn't it like in different states you can only do a couple cars a year or something like that?
Yeah, so I had a call with a guy last night that I'm helping out, just trying to start one up. And so when I was telling him the way I started in the beginning was just, I'm going to broker a private party to private party sale, and you're going to pay me $500 or $1,000, but the guy's going to pay you. You don't need any license for that. There's no dealer's license because you're not putting it in your name. The wholesaling side was kind of the same way. In the beginning, if you called me and said, hey, I want to sell my F-150 and I'll take 28 grand, then I'd go find a dealer to pay 30. They'd give you 28 and they'd throw me $2,000. And so that was how I was able to start and kind of build like a nest egg for myself without having any of the licenses. So I started in September of 18. Not until like March or April of 2019 did I actually get a dealer's license, because you need a building for that.
Yeah, you need a mailbox and a bathroom.
Exactly.
Or
and you
like
need
that.
the stickers on the door, and highway patrol's got to come by. So in the beginning, I was just trying to build up some form of capital because I had no money. And around, I had started to have a bunch of people calling me saying, hey, sell my car, list my car for me. And then I realized, like, okay, I need some help because I don't know everything about selling cars. Like, I just kind of know what they're worth, and I know how to meet the people. And so I brought on Alex Long, who's currently my business partner. He handles kind of our retail sales side, and he was a salesperson at Exotic Motors at the time. And so me and him leased a building in March of 19. Once we did that, neither of us really had much money to start with. So we just consigned everything we could and wholesaled everything we could for the first year.
So when you approached him, right, and you were like, hey, I'm got this RP Exotics thing going on. Do you want to be a part of it? That sort of thing. Like, was he like immediately like, let's do this? Or was he kind of a little skeptical?
Oh, he was totally skeptical, and he'll tell you this. Like, and I don't blame him. Looking back, it's like the 18-year-old you're going to go quit your job and join. And I called him every day just to give him updates, because he always helped me with everything. And so I'd give him updates and say, this is what's going on. How should I handle this deal, while he was working in Exotic Motors. And I'd always tell him, come join me. And he said, okay, if you get 15 or 20 cars that are on consignment, we don't have to pay for anything, I'll come join you.
At one time?
Yeah.
Or just,
you go prove that you can have a 15 or 20 car inventory, I'll go lease a building and join you. And I'm like, great, you do that, I'll give you half the company for free. And so, sure enough, I had these like post-it boards in my dorm room at SLU, and I was writing down whoever wanted to consign their car with me. Well, one guy would sell his car, so you cross him off. Now I got to go find two more. And eventually, around February of 19, I said, hey, I've got the cars. You promised me if I did it, you would come. We better meet. And so we met, and I still remember that night we met over at Lester's over in Ladue, and he's like, I guess we're doing it. And so we worked out a deal to lease that building that we're still in now. And it's been smooth sailing since.
If you don't mind me asking, like, what kind of rent is that?
So it's funny. I don't know how much I should say. In the beginning, when we leased the building, we worked out a deal with the owner of it. It was actually our old boss, and he decided he was going to move his business elsewhere. So he moved to Ohio. It was part of a different deal, and he cut us the best deal in the world. We subleased it for $2,300 a month. So it was like our nut over the whole month was $4,000 a month. And we were sweating. We're like, if we can't make $4,000 a month, we are screwed. We're going bankrupt. It was terrifying.
Your back's up against the wall. That's when you get the best results.
The release was a lot nastier than $2,300 a month. But in the beginning, it was like, how do we keep this as lean and mean as possible with as little as overhead? And that really came from Alex, because me, I'm like, I swipe the credit card. I want to buy everything, all the hats.
He
shirts.
seems like a straight shooter. He's got the
he's got a lot of hair gel.
Hair. Yeah.
He's the brakes. I'm the gas, and it's a good combo. And it definitely it all worked out really well.
So he handles talking to buyers, that sort of thing, and then you're handling more of the getting the cars. What are we going to buy? What are we going to sell? That sort of thing, right?
Correct. So he runs our retail sales department. So the retail sales guys, he acts as our general or sales manager. They go to him with their deals. He helps coach them on how to sell the cars and what to do on that end. My job is to bring in all the consignments, buy the inventory, wholesale the inventory, and then kind of operate on the backside of it. Alex, the retail sales thing is extremely time consuming. Especially we're at 140 cars listed right now. It's with 4 salespeople or 5 salespeople. It's nonstop.
I imagine it's a headache too, dealing with certain buyers, probably like myself, and coming to you with barely showing any money on paper that I can make, and I'm like, yeah, I want to get this Audi R8, and it's just a headache to get me financed or something like that. You're probably dealing with a lot of those
retail
situations.
In the beginning, we both were doing retail deals, and he was taking the leads, and then I was trying to just create what I could out of my contact list and social media. Now, as that transitioned, he takes on all the lead stuff, and then I still do deals with customers like you. So I'll do like 3 or 4 or 5 deals with close friends or people I meet that they say, hey, I want to buy a Lambo, and I tell them which one they're buying.
Right.
And so the customer base I'm dealing with is a little bit different, and we've got a whole mix up. Right. I mean, now our inventory is like a Mazda CX-5 that's worth $10,000 I saw this morning, and then we have the carbon fiber Eleanor worth $700,000. And so we've got a huge array of it. Yep.
Yeah. So that's something I want to ask you is like, when I know nothing about the industry itself, right? So whatever I say, it's not like I heard from somebody that selling the cheap cars is where like a lot of the money is made. I don't know if that's true or not. So would you say that selling more expensive cars, that means bigger commission? Like you want to go for the more expensive cars? Or, is buying a $10,000 Prius, quick money and you can just consistently do that all day long?
There's cases, and it depends, and you can have expensive cars that crush it and do really well. There's also obviously way more risk associated with it. And what stops a lot of dealers and what crushes a lot of dealers to getting to this 5-year mark that we're at is the cost to hold that money. If you're tying up $2, $3, $4 million, or like some of the big players, $10, $20 million in inventory, and that market corrects 20%, there's a lot of money to be lost on the table. And so there's a much lower chance of a $10,000 or $15,000 car flipping over in the market versus a Lamborghini. Yeah. And the way we got around that was we said, okay, we're not experts on this yet, so we're going to consign everything. If someone wants to wholesale or sell us a car, we're just going to wholesale it. We're not going to hold anything. And we developed some dealer relationships early on where we said, hey, we're scared of risk and we don't have any money. We're going to bring you the deals. You're going to pay for it, and then you're going to consign them back with us. And so it was a lot of retail consignments, but we were also getting dealerships to consign cars with us and other private individuals who wanted the investment opportunity. But we, especially for the first 3 years in business, alleviated all of the risk off ourselves just to truly master the business.
I mean, that's genius. Being able to use that leverage, right? I'm surprised that like a big dealership like that would bring funds to the table. I mean, obviously there's a play for them, but I don't know if you proved to them at that time, like kind of like with the Alex thing, like, hey, you need to get 15 cars. If they looked at you like, hey, can we trust these guys? Can they actually sell? Or did they just look at the market value and they were like, all right, this makes sense. They can probably make a profit, and we don't want to. We don't want to have to do the legwork on it.
What we did really well with that was we, from the very beginning, so we're not going to look like another car dealership. We're not going to have these BS websites and these boring ads. And you've been on it where it'll be like description for a Lamborghini, has AC, has power locks. Right. It's like, who cares? So we'd go in and either Alex or myself, whoever knew more about the car, there's like Lambos are my thing, Ferraris are his thing, old Porsches he does, new Porsches I do. And so whoever the car really made sense for, we'd write a description. We did the best photos of anyone. Our website was always top notch. And so we went at it from, okay, if we can't compete with the biggest car dealerships, we can compete with them on the marketing side. And especially the way I looked at it in the beginning was like, we are a marketing company for people's assets. We're a real estate agent company. And so I brought that side of it while Alex brought the car dealership side. And that was kind of why it was the perfect combo to set up. Okay. So that's how, these dealers, like, yeah, they could buy it and put it on their lot. But look at most of the dealers in St. Louis. They don't roll like the way we're rolling with it. And so it just made more sense if we could get more out of that, bring more people to the table. And it worked out quite well.
Right. They don't have the swag that RP has.
Yeah, we got the apparel going, man. Yeah, that was everything.
I've been rocking it all the time. We should have threw it up on the screen. So, okay, so you and Alex decide to partner, right? You guys, put your back up against the wall. You get this building. which, I don't know how many cars it can fit. I could assume well over 50 cars, I would imagine,
At the time we were subleasing it, so I only could fit like 30. And now it's all ours, and it's 65 cars with
right.
the lifts.
And
that
they're
you've
this
seen.
far away.
Yeah, and it's like, and you're climbing out the window,
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
truck drivers we were talking about earlier. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So at that time, the first year, how many cars, you had 15, we'll say when you guys partnered, how much did you get up to?
So we started with 15, and I want to say, I looked at, in 2020, we sold $9 million worth of cars. In 2019, I think it was like $3 or $4 million worth of cars. And then in 2021, we went up to 20 million in cars, and 2022 was 40 million. So that was like each year we were just doubling how many cars we were moving. And with that came more inventory. We started buying more over time. But really, now I'm a lot more risky with the purchases. Before that, though, I would not buy a car unless I knew I had the money covered.
For sure.
So there was no risk. I didn't lose on a car for the first probably 3.5 years or so, lose any money on it until it could happen and it wouldn't hurt so bad. But yeah, the consignment thing was everything. It was like, Alex, you're going to sell the cars and I'm just going to keep them stocked for you. And I'd get on the computer every day or get on my phone, just start calling people. Hey man, anything about selling your car? Friends, family, go to shows. That was it. Like just build a free inventory.
So there's a saying out there called, it rains, it pours, right? So I feel like anytime I see success, it's, I'm going straight uphill, right? And then when one thing happens bad, it's like that.
Sure.
So with these cars, right? Was it at times where you guys were buying a ton of cars and you were just selling them all the time, and then there'd be those different pieces of time where it's like you guys can't sell anything or you can't get any good deals? Was that at any point like the case?
There was never like a major fire that ever happened with us or that happened with the business. I would say there was times during COVID when, right when COVID happened, it was like no one's calling, no one's buying cars, but then that corrected itself 2 months later. Then it got really hard to stock inventory, but that's a good problem to have. Like really the biggest fire would be if I go out and buy a bunch of cars and then the market drops 20% or 10% and I just lost $1 million or $2 million. We've never been in that shoes. We really didn't start buying heavily until the past probably year and a half that we like really got after it and really started buying our own stuff. So now It's 75 consignments, 75 cars we own.
So COVID happens and all of a sudden, right, you guys are probably like, what do we do? Where the phone's not ringing. I would assume that at that time, the exotic car market, you would think that it would go down, but it seems like based on what I know, right, I probably could have bought a Huracan for 175, and then months later, they're now worth 250,000. So I'm sure that you guys probably got a lot of good deals at that time.
It tremendously helped the business.
Yeah.
100%. The way the car market went and the timing of us setting up the business and everything. Obviously, I wish I would have set it up 5 years sooner so I would have had the money to buy cars at that time because then I really would have crushed it. But it really helped build the consignment model when people were bringing their cars in for consignment and they were selling the next day. It's now we have the team to make that happen. But at the time, like COVID carried a lot of that. I mean, cars were just going up $5,000 a week, $2,000 a week. You couldn't lose. Now, again, I still wasn't buying because I was so scared. I just never wanted the risk. Looking back, I wish I did. But on all the consignments, I mean, they were just crushing it, moving, selling. And like me and Alex alone at one point were doing 20 cars a month, 25 cars a month, just the two of us and just rocking. But again, COVID carried a lot of that. Those days are gone. The market's definitely changed since then.
Yeah, it's crazy about like, there's businesses out there where they like suffered completely, like maybe, an airline or a restaurant or something like that where people couldn't go to those places. But like my business, the junk removal business, like it made way more sense. And I feel like I started the business at the exact time. And what people don't understand, right, who might not like have seen as fast of success as I did, right, is they started before COVID. And it took them a lot longer to get to where they want to go. But for my junk removal business, it's like more people are working from home now to where it makes it extremely convenient for us to go at any time. It opened up our schedule and there was so much money flowing around that we were just making so much money and it was so easy to scale. Yep. And now that is not there, right? Now people see what it's really like to grow a business, or that money isn't flowing as much. People are worried about a recession, so So I guess you were selling all these cars during COVID. Everything was going crazy. Now the market that we're in, has anything changed? Like, are less people buying because they're scared?
Cars are moving, so if we were able to sell 20 cars a month out of our inventory back during COVID, that's probably about half of that now, so 10. So then what do? Well, we've got to increase the inventory, increase the consignments, increase the marketing. So it was really like, if we want to stick with this and we're going to do this, we're not going to be two guys in a warehouse just selling cars. This is going to level up. And so the first person we hired was like a porter, a few years ago. And then we hired an office clerk to kind of do all of our paperwork. So it was like, okay, if we weaponize ourselves to go do as many deals as possible, let's have an office clerk handle the paperwork. And then we brought on our first salesperson. And that's when things really changed. When we brought on Mason, the numbers went nuts. Because, just having one extra person to make calls and try and take those leads and close those deals, it's everything. And so now we're at 3 or 4 salespeople on top of that. And
So a normal car dealership, you see all the sharks, right? The salesmen, right? They're at the door, they're waiting for that one car to pull up. I assume that it's not really a walk-in type case scenario for you guys. Are people booking appointments to go look at that Lambo or different cars like that?
when we started the business, it was walk-in, appointment only, doors are locked. Well, we actually wanted people to come in the beginning because it was just me and Alex. And then it hit this threshold where it was like, we don't have enough manpower for the people coming in. Let's reel that back. And most of the cars we were selling were online stuff anyways. Now that we have enough salespeople and enough cars and a variety of cars, and we've really tried to buy cars that are focused on St. Louis customers, Midwest customers, we encourage walk-in traffic. I had the boys a few months ago pull the appointment-only stickers off the doors, open to business for everyone. Like, we want as many people to come in as possible. We have the team there now. My whole crew is absolutely awesome, and like, it's the most friendly place you walk in. There's a 3-legged dog jumps on you.
The French bulldog.
Yeah, and we got a bar in there. It's a lot different than a normal car dealership.
I bought a French bulldog because I met yours, and now he's tearing up my house all the time.
I bought mine because I didn't want to be alone during COVID, and man, it's like a full-time job with that dog.
Yeah,
Comes to
I
work
love how
every day with me.
he's at the office, he's walking around, he's snoring in your office, that sort of thing.
He's ridden in more Lambos than any dog in the world, more than most humans. Yeah,
right.
So he goes there every day.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what kind of traffic are you seeing on a daily basis, right? Are people like actually walking in every single day and just looking at the cars? Or are they just like, window shopping, as they say? Or are they actually like interested in cars? And are your salesmen really getting that opportunity like just on walk-ins, or mainly where you're making the money is with those appointments?
So they're getting from online inquiries, the sales guys are getting about 500, 600 leads a month that get doled out to all of them. And then, they decide Alex or myself will decide who's the best fit for that lead. They'll call them and they work the deal. In terms of walk-in traffic, there's a decent amount. A few people a week will come in and walk through the store. I would say 1 to 3 people walk in and say, I'll take it. And, like, I wasn't here to buy anything, and that car's just cool. That green Aventador, the guy who bought that, he just walked in and he walked in with his son. His son's like, that's the coolest car I've ever seen. This thing's amazing. Like a 5-year-old. Yeah. And the guy just took the car. So bought it. It was so it's a few deals a month, but not nearly as much as online. Like the last 2 months, we've done 60 cars a month in sales, and I would say 5 to 10 of those stay in St. Louis.
Okay, that's awesome. So on your website, I know that you have like what are you looking for? It says something like that, right? Where I can type in, hey, I'm looking for a 16 Huracan and I'm looking to spend X. Are your salesmen getting those leads, and then are they calling and making that connection right then and there to where they set up potentially a purchase in the future? And then basically like, or if you get that car, you're like, oh, I know Kyle wanted that Huracan, and then you give him a call. Is that how it works?
That is the number one place in the business where I've dropped the ball, where I have not been able to capitalize as much as I should have, because a lot of people will call me and say, can you find me a car? So-and-so said, you're the guy, find me a white G-Wagon with a white interior. And for me, it was just, okay, I've already got these other 100 cars or whatever it is that I'm responsible to sell, whether it's mine or a consignment. I have to focus on those. And so I was so busy working on those cars that I didn't find time for the sourcing side. So we had a guy who started working with us like 6 months ago. He was going to be a salesperson, but it wasn't really his fit. And then he loves searching for cars, and he's like an encyclopedia.
It's a great job.
We gave him this role. I've introduced John, who I introduced you on text, and he's a whiz with it. He's loving it. He's crushing it. He's doing amazing. Another guy started helping us with it, so we're finally cracking the code for that. In the past, it just wasn't my thing. I had so much other stuff on my plate. It was like, the car that I don't have to worry about, I got to put that at the bottom of my priority list.
It's a long-term play.
Yeah, exactly. When I had 10 cars in inventory, I did that all the time. That's how I built my connections. But running the business and having 140 cars is it
See, and I'm
takes up all
sure
time.
a lot of people that fill that out are unqualified buyers who are just like, like if I posted my car for sale, I'm going to get 10 people who are like, hey, would you take $190,000, right? And I'm
Yep.
like, yep, I'll take it. And then you just never hear from them again, or they're like actually not buyers, right? People are always making offers on cars, and if you
Correct.
accept, they're not going to come through.
Tons of strokers, tons of tire kickers. Of those 500, 600 leads we're getting, it's maybe 10% close.
Right.
I mean,
and that would be great.
yeah, like it's more like probably 6 or 7%. And that was a really hard thing with consignment. Was consigners be like, when I post my car on Facebook, I get 30 messages and they're all offering asking price. But like,
don't
yeah,
get
tell
it.
them to send the money, and they never do. The guy's full of it. It's there's so much of that. Facebook really made the consignment thing tough for us because in the past few years, like when we started, this wasn't around, but in the past few years, that Wholesale Car Club, the Exotic Cars for Sale by Owner, all those groups, people would start just posting their own cars in there, and it's like, well, why consign it? By the time they get so deep in the process, it would have been better off just using a consignment service of any kind, because someone's always got a trade in, they always need financing, they always want to ship it, you got to send them a video, they want to get a PPI. There's so many steps. There's a reason we have so many salespeople. It's exhausting. I mean,
Yeah, and for me, it's like, I've sold box trucks and bought box trucks, and I'm like, looking at a bill of sale or the title, and I'm like, where do I even sign? Am I doing this right? There's no way I did that right?
Yep.
To where if I actually have more of an expensive car or something like that, I always go to you, even though it's going to cost me a little bit of money, so I do not have to deal with it, and it makes complete sense to me.
The pitch for the what we called Consignment program, and that name came because no dealer liked to use consignment. I was like a kid. I would go on these rallies and ask other dealers, like, why don't you guys do consignment? I'm so confused. It seems like such a great model. And they're like, oh, that's for the guys with no money. And I'm like, well, okay, I'll be the guy with no money. Fair enough. And then I didn't like that it said consignment because it's like con as the prefix. And it just kind of was like a dirty word. Sounded like I'm a broker.
Furniture stores.
Yeah, it's just like,
it.
it was just a nasty business. People would say, like, can I co-sign my car? It was just weird. So I'm like, screw it. If we're going to double down and say, this is our brand, we're proud to say that we didn't always have the money, and that's how we started. We bootstrapped this. Let's create our own terms. So we created Consignment. So if you go on the website, the first thing you see is Sign your car today. And with those, it's, here, you could go trade in a Lamborghini to a dealership, and they're going to offer you, 250 grand, and then put it on their website for 280 or 290. Well, so why don't you give it to me to put on my website for 280, and I'll take 5 or 10 grand to sell it, and now you just net out an extra 10 or 20,000. So that was the pitch.
So say I was to sell my Huracan, right? And I was to come to you and do a Consignment deal. How explain how that works, right? If I wanted to get 200 grand for it, or we'll say 195.
So say you called the Lamborghini store and you called the wholesalers, or you hit up the guys from Wholesale Car Club, said, give me a bid. Like, man, it's worth 180, because they got to go sell it to another dealership for 185. Then that guy's got to go make his margin on it. So he's listing at 205. So I say, hey, instead of taking your 180 offer, bring it to me. I'll list it for you for 204,995, and I'm going to charge you 4% to sell it, or whatever it is at the time. And each deal is a little bit different, because the biggest thing for us, and a lot of people ask, why don't you set a percentage? It's because it's about the value that I can provide. If I can get you $15,000 more over the course of 4 weeks versus you trading it in, isn't that worth it to you?
Yeah.
So now if that means I'm making 5 grand or 10 grand, I don't know, but usually it falls in that category.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. I feel like every dealership should do something like very similar. There's just so much opportunity there, especially you don't need to bring as much funds to the table. I guess it makes sense more for the people who, kind of like what you were just saying, that don't have money. It's a great way to get in the game, but I feel like it's still a no-brainer.
The only thing that was frustrating was like, then I'm, the kid who's got these cool cars and these exotics. Someone's like, why don't you drive them to the car show? And I'm like, well, I can't drive them because I don't own them. And so that was tough. And then that's what made me really want to start buying cars, because I wanted to go drive them. It's like, I can't drive someone else's. So that's part of the reason we started buying more cars, so I could drive them, go to events. Like, I will say it is easier to sell a car I own when I can look at a customer or someone like you and say, here's the keys, take it for the weekend. Let me know how you like it. Usually that sells the car.
You did it to me twice.
Yeah, exactly. And usually it works.
Times.
Yeah. And it's just a fun experience. Like, we have these cars, we have this opportunity. We're not always going to have a 2020 McLaren 720 Spider, so you might as well drive it while it's here. That's the only downside to the Consignment deal. But overall, from a customer perspective, it makes total sense.
Yeah, I remember the first time actually, it was the R8 is where it started.
The red one.
Let me drive it.
Yeah, I bought that.
It was
from
like
a
we
local
pull
guy.
up to a stoplight. I've never drove an exotic car in my life. And you're like, all right, Chinese fire drill. And I'm like, what? And it's a stick. I've never drove an exotic stick. And I'm like, yep, I want this car. It looks
Yep.
so sick. We go out to dinner. I see it driving by after I'm in my Equinox that's rocking
Yeah,
back and forth.
that's the way to
right?
do
And
it,
then
right?
I couldn't get financed on the vehicle. And then once I made a little more money, we'll say, I went to look at Roger's Raptor. And then I was like, I'll take it.
okay.
And you said, oh, I just sold it, I think is what you said.
Yep.
And then I was like, you were like, here, take this Range Rover. And so I took a black Range Rover that you had that wasn't the supercharged one.
Yeah.
And then I was like, something ended up happening to where I didn't get that one. I was like, I want a different one, right? And
Yep.
then you went and sourced it for me, and
Sure.
we ended up. I still have that one today, and then, now have the Huracan as well. I guess I do. Whenever I picked it up, that's when I drove it for the first time.
Yeah, I think the Huracan, I told you I had this car coming in and we had to do a few things on it and change the wrap or whatever and the wheels. And you're like, all right, I'll take it.
I need to take it now.
Yeah. and those are really like the types. I work more as kind of the operator of the business than on the retail front. So like when I do deals, it's with people like you who are like, I trust you. Just you handle it. Tell me where to sign. And there's a whole nother side of the business, as there should be, of guys who want to come in and spend their time looking. It's just, we've got different segments for that right now, and I love working with guys like you.
Yeah.
There's nothing more fun than someone's like, just pick me out a Lambo. You go, okay.
Well, you know how difficult I've probably been as a client compared to your best clients out there who are just like, hey, send me your wire
you're
info,
easy.
right?
Trust me, you're easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You've been easy. And I've got a few other customers, a few local guys who are same way. Like they don't care what car it is. If they see it on my website, they somewhat like it, they'll just buy it.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of customers who, even my best friends, will go buy their cars from everyone else. And I say, I don't care. That's fine. Because, if you want a blue Ferrari and I only have red Ferraris, go buy the blue one. Like, don't buy the red one or the blue one just because of me. At the same time, when you go to sell that car, give me a first shot opportunity.
Of course.
That's always my spiel.
So I want to tell the story because I think it's hilarious. I went to pick up the Huracan, so I bought it late March, right? I hand you the check, whatever. We go out to the car, it's all cleaned up, it's pouring down rain, and I'm like, so how, sit in this car, and I'm like, really, I was extremely concerned because I'm in this super expensive car, and I'm like, how do I even drive this thing,
Yep.
And it's so low to the ground, I don't want to, tear the front end out going out of your parking lot or anything right away. And I said, how do you drive this thing? And you said, well, when's the last time you drove a Lambo? I'm like, I've never drove a Lambo in my life. And you're like, all right, let's go for a ride. Because it doesn't have drive and you got to use the paddles. I feel like for weeks I was still trying to figure out the paddles and if I need to click the M button, that sort of thing. So
I used to love to, like, when someone would buy a Huracan, I used to put together binders for them and, like, here's your operations instructions and here's a bow and a bottle of champagne. And, my end goal is really to be able to get back to that client-facing interactions and have fun with that. It's just, you understand it from scaling your business. It's like over time, certain things take a hit and you rely on everyone else to fill it in. So we're definitely in that scaling phase. But interactions like that are the best. Like there's nothing more fun than a guy buying his first Lambo.
Yeah, and there's, something called lifetime value too, right? So where anybody could go buy one car from you or you do one consignment deal with you. But you want that long-term relationship where I'll probably do 50 deals with you, right? And constantly want this car and sell this car, right? It's constant. So when you create that amazing experience, that's when your business really starts compounding over time and scaling. So.
I would say that's the most stressful part of the business is relying on teaching that and that feeling that you understand to the rest of your team.
Yeah,
especially guys who are commission only, where they start to get kind of that commission breath, and they're just so worried about selling. It's like, guys, just slow it back. You could have this customer for the next 5 years, steady flow. Just relax.
It's easy for commission guys only too to oversell what you're actually offering, right? And then it's like, that's a really hard part of growing your business is making sure those employees don't ruin your reputation in a way, and it will happen at some time. If it's happened for me, right? We've lost relationships where people will pay us $40,000 a year for junk removal consistently, and then it's like I'm not the one bidding the jobs, right? And they start to go up.
Yes.
And what they would do with junk removal, if I'm not on the jobs, and they walk into a job with bugs everywhere, and it's just nasty, and they're like they've already been working for a couple hours. They jack the junk removal price up so high where they would not land it, right? And then they're like, who's this guy trying to stick it to me? And we would lose that relationship over time.
Yes, 100%. I've been through the exact same thing on both the consignments, what they're trying to charge on that, and the sales and keep people happy. Like it's a moving target because you want your guys to make money and you want them to all be successful and you want them to drive sales. but there's also a side of it of it's not about the dollar today. And so there's, we work through it. It's just something we're still trying to keep perfect.
Right. Make less now, make more in the long term.
Exactly.
So I want to touch on like the rental aspect of things. When did you, I know you're not like, you don't have rental cars, we'll say, or exotic cars in St. Louis because it's probably not a great market for it. But, I know that Turo became a big thing, around COVID time and stuff like that. I know that you had a couple vehicles on Turo. How well did that work for you? And I know that you had a Hellcat, I believe, which you mentioned a while ago.
Terrible. Horrible. It's, I kind of glossed over that part of my story, I guess. The first time, or the second way I approached the owner of Exotic Motors when I was 15, 16, and he had already turned me down for a job, I said, okay, well, I want to start a car rental company, and I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I just wanted to get my foot in the door and talk to this guy. And I did love the idea of car rentals because that was kind of what got me into the cars. My dad rented an Exotic one time when I was like 12 years old. We rented a Ferrari for a day, and it was just the coolest thing in the world down in Miami. And I reached out to Danny, and Danny said, okay, fine, I'll get lunch with you and talk to you and tell you why the rental business is horrible. And so he explained it to me, and I'm like, I totally agree. But then I went and did it anyways. And so what I did was I took my Charger Hellcat and that Range Rover. So the Charger Hellcat I was paying $499 a month for. So I'm like, if I just cover $500, I'll be good. And then, if there's a little extra, I'll pay for that. That's my car. And the Range Rover was worth like 10 or 15 grand. So it's going, okay, that's perfect. Well, so I throw those on there, and the Range Rover starts
On Turo?
On Turo.
Okay.
Yep. And at this point, this was more like when I was in college time. Yeah. And while I was in class, I was paying a buddy a percentage of the profit to go run the cars around because you got to like drop them off and clean them and pick them up. The whole Turo's a pain in the ass is what I'm getting at. But I had my Hellcat on there, and this guy rents it. And we'd rent it out a few times. It was all good. What's funny about the Hellcats is it records the max speed. So every time I go rent it out, I'd reset it and then see
203
like
miles
150, 165, whatever. And I didn't care. It was under warranty. This guy meets me down at the SLU parking garage to pick it up from me. This is like, it was right around Valentine's Day, actually, is when this happened, of 2019. So the guy meets me at the garage, and I said, what are you renting the car for? He's like, oh, I flew in town. I'm a music producer. He's, decked out. He's got the Louis Vuitton duffel bag and all the Gucci stuff on. And like, I'm going, okay, what? I'm like a naive kid. I don't know. And so he goes, I'm here to rent it. I tell him, I'm like, I'll leave my radar detector in here for you. Have a great time, man. You're going to love it. Yeah, having a great, I gave the guy a hug. We're best buddies. And so that was like on a Thursday. Well, Friday comes around. I'm like, hey, man, you dropping off the car? He's like, yeah, I'm stuck in Chicago. Sends me a picture of it. And I'm like, oh, that sucks. Okay, whatever, man. Like, I've never been screwed at this point. Well, then Saturday comes around. I'm like, yo, where's the car? And the texts go from blue to green. And that's, I'm sure you know. That's when you know you're screwed.
Voicemail.
Yep, straight to voicemail. So I'm like, what do I do? So I called Turo, and Turo's like, your car is definitely stolen. Well, so then their first thing is we're going to call OnStar. And Turo's team is great. They really helped. They call OnStar, and OnStar's like, yeah, we have trackers in all the Dodge products besides the 2018 Hellcat. And we're like, okay. So there was no tracker in the car. And long story short, they never found it. And 3 months later, like Turo was trying to underpay on the car and didn't want to make the payoff. We had to get an attorney involved. Everything was made right. It worked out fine. But
so Turo will pay you?
Turo, yeah, I had the max insurance coverage, and it says it covered full value on theft. And this was like every I was dotted, every T was crossed. I did my job right. I took a picture of the driver's license. I held it in my hand. I felt it. Like they had all his stuff. The story was the guy stole some woman's purse, got her credit cards, found out her husband's name, created a fake ID with his photo on it in the husband's name, used the husband's credit card or the wife's credit card to put the deposit down on Turo, and that's how he got through all their systems. And so he stole the car, and the car was never found again.
That's crazy.
So that was
the convicts are the people who are always the smartest.
Yeah, exactly. And then the dealership started right after, and I'm like, lesson learned, no more Turo. I won't do rental cars. I think I tried it a little more with like little Buick Encores, but if you dedicate full time to it and you've got 10 or 15 cars, I'm sure it can be done.
Right.
My business makes more sense to me.
So what do you think happened at the car?
He probably looks damn good in that bright red Hellcat. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's driving white now. Yeah, it's got gold rims.
We did pull the Carfax on it 2 or 3 years later, just out of curiosity. It says it was totaled and found in Springfield, Missouri. Who knows? But Turo did make right on it. It was all handled and.
I think that's why Royalty Exotics, I think that's the name on YouTube. I always used to see those videos. They went extremely viral because of all these rental stories of people wrecking the car or stealing the car and these tracking devices. And then they would go block the car in and confront them and all these things.
Yep.
I feel like if you could document that in some way, even though it's obviously a pretty bad loss, you might get a lot of eyeballs.
Yeah, I definitely thought about it. I mean, the worst one, even worse than the car being stolen, was I had a Porsche Cayenne at a time, and it was like a 2014 Cayenne, another one with some miles on it, probably worth $25,000. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put this on Turo and rent it out. It was doing good. And these two girls take it and they drop it back off. And I swear, man, you open the door from 50 feet away and outside, you could smell this thing. It was the worst smell. I don't even know how to explain
They
it.
were hotboxing.
It wasn't weed. I don't know what it was. It was like
boy.
it almost seemed like they dumped like a bottle of perfume to cover up weed into the air ducts and air vents in the cabin filter. The car was never the same. Like we chlorine bombed the car, which is nuts, and that didn't solve it. We did the ionizers, did the windows. We paid detailing companies, like nothing worked. And I think that was actually the true end of me doing the rentals, because I just had to run the car through the auction. Like I couldn't sell that car to someone with the way it smelled. It was horrible.
Yeah, it probably still stinks today.
Yeah, Turo added in a policy after that that now covers smells. At the time, they didn't
Gotcha.
have anything for that.
So I saw a video recently, and it was a Hellcat. It seems to be always the Hellcats, right? And basically, this Challenger, somebody bought a Challenger, or they were renting it. They were renting the Challenger. It might have been on Turo, and some have like the logo, the Hellcat logo on the back of them or whatever. And they painted the car, put a logo on it, and then created a fake title for the vehicle.
Yep.
And then sold the car for like something that was way too good to be true, where if you saw it on Facebook Marketplace, you're like, this is a red flag. It's way too good to be true, and sold the car to some kid, right? Probably
Yes.
our age, for like $20,000 a Hellcat, right? And then that kid got screwed.
That type of stuff happens all the time. I mean, more scams. Like I had a few things on the rent side, but there are a lot of scams in the car business. And I saw a lot of them early on while I worked at the other dealership to be protected. But there's still people who will try and get you today on stuff. I mean, I had a guy just a few weeks ago bring me a Lamborghini Urus, and the deal was just way too good to be true. I knew something was up, and I said, well, hey, why don't you leave the car with me so I can get a PPI? My thought was I'll run the VINs, do my checks, whatever. What I thought was happening was he was trying to hide a rollback, because that's the new thing on these Lambos. Everyone's rolling back the odometers or blocking
Because
the
they're
odometers.
rentals, or
Yeah, so a lot of them are coming out of Miami with blocked odometers, and then they pull the blocker off, sell you the car. Well, the true mileage on it's 20,000 miles higher, and that's extremely common now. So the only way I'll buy Lamborghinis for the Huracan, Aventador, and Urus is to get a Lamborghini store to check the transmission for the true mileage. It's happening all over. And
so mine might have 150,000
you could have
miles.
200,000 miles on the thing. Now you were checked, but it's wild. Like the Urus, this guy brings me in, so I'm thinking that's his move, and he disappears, doesn't bring it. And I told him, if you find your own buyer for the car, I'll just broker the deal, so I'm not liable for it, and I'll charge you $1,000. Well, he shows up with a buyer like a week later unannounced. It's like, hey, I need you to broker this deal. He's all frantic and panicking, and I look at the title, and I'm like, okay, this doesn't look real. Something's off. So then I think I'm gonna check the Carfax. Well, the Carfax says it was from a different state. I call the DMV at one. They say this car doesn't exist. I call the DMV at what the Carfax says. They say, if you have that car, and I've got the phone on speaker, so the buyer's sitting there, seller's sitting here, the DMV's on. They're like, we're transferring you to the theft division right now. And the guy looks at me, that we get on with them. Everyone's kind of frozen in the room, and they're like, if you have that car in your possession, take the keys. That car needs to be impounded. It's a stolen car. The guy grabs the keys off my desk, grabs the fake title, bolts out the door, drove away.
Wow.
Yeah. He
I
ended
remember-
up selling it to someone around here.
That's crazy. What color was it?
I won't say.
Okay. I saw one last night. So I remember I was in your office one time, maybe a year ago or 2 years ago or something like that. And you guys like got some rental car. You saw some rental car website in St. Louis where somebody took all of the pictures of your RP exotic cars and started renting them out.
Yeah.
Did it like...
It was just some kid. It was, I mean, we've had that happen where like brokers will take our photos and try and make their own listings, or, that kid in that situation was like, well, I just, figured maybe you would rent your car eventually. And here, this other guy started like an RP Motors and RP. There's been a lot of spin-offs of what we've done. Yeah.
That's the same thing with the house industry, right? It's like somebody has this deal and everyone tries to piggyback on that one deal, and there's 5 buyers listing or 5 sellers trying to list the same property, and nobody owns it just so they can make an extra $5,000.
Exactly. And I respect that, because that was me and you. Like, think about, you're from the same world, like you're hustling. And
I
did
a
the
bad
same.
reputation, but it's all about the hustle, and if
Exactly.
it's a win-win, then...
So what I did is, like, I've got a few friends. I think you met a couple of them. They came in town back at one of my old houses a few years ago.
Yep.
And so, like, they came in, and helping those guys guys when they don't have capital up front to buy the cars, they don't have the dealer's license, like, hey, I'll always insure your bet. So if you don't know where to hit a car, I'll put a number on it for you for free. If you can buy it for 20 grand less, I'll write you a $20,000 brokerage check. I've always wanted to support those young guys who are coming up like me, because there's a lot of dealers who made my life hell when I was trying to work with them. But yes, there's also a lot of nasty brokers who are just slimy people. And but I'm always down to supporting guys who are trying to make it like we have.
Yeah, I feel like, again, I feel like everybody wants that. Like, I look at car dealers I personally know, right? And they're selling the $3,000 Corollas. And I'm like, man, why aren't you buying the Lamborghinis, the Ferraris, stuff like that? And I'm sure they do have funding. It's just such a... Like, I remember when we met, right? You said, hey, you should come to the Ritz Cigar Bar. And we went there, right? And you're pulling up. Every time we hung out, it was a different car, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, cars that you owned, right? Mm-hmm. And I was just looking at that, like, here I am, hustling every single day in a junk removal business, picking up trash.
Yep.
When I could be driving exotic cars, But what I liked about being around you was like seeing, like, manifesting, right, what was possible, and walking into that dealership and seeing 50 cars or 100 cars, or even being able to get in them, right?
Yeah.
That most people will never ride in an exotic car, and I got that experience, which motivated me so much more to actually get to that next level, where I think it's so important. Even, the buddy that I introduced you to, he told me about how he'd go to the Lamborghini dealership, he'd close his eyes and he'd be acting like he's driving that car, and now he's got, as many as you can think of.
It's the funnest part about this business. And it also really helped with building the business, was everyone loves our product. It makes people smile. It makes them really happy. Besides the angry neighbors I was just telling you about before the podcast, like, it's a motivating feeling, and I lose sight of it quite a bit because I become so desensitized. It's the only industry I've ever been in is exotic cars. And I was in Chicago this past weekend with some buddies, and I was walking through the Richard Mille store and some other watch dealerships, and I'm like, this must be how people feel when they walk in the dealership, because I'm like, I can't afford any of these. These things are amazing. I just want to wear all of them right now.
Yeah.
And I can't afford those watches.
And you seem like a Richard Mille type of guy.
Yeah, that's the goal.
You like that watch, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And that's one of those stores where you walk in and you walk into a normal jewelry store and you see 150 watches, and you walk into the Richard Mille store and there's one or two. If there's even one or two. Even the Rolex stores, there's nothing. They don't have anything.
And that's not the vision for my business. Like, that is, I was thinking about that, and that was part of our conversation when we were having lunch afterwards. Was I don't want my business to feel like this exclusive, turned off thing. It kind of started that way, of like, we're exotics and it's called RP Exotics. But I want it to be all sorts of cars, car guys, car enthusiasts. Like, my hiring, the way I've tried to hire salespeople is strategic based on what they're passionate about. So, like, Mason's an expert on classic cars. That's his division. And Tanner's an expert on the Lambos and, the new Ferraris. And John likes whatever. So I never wanted that exclusive where it's like, why are you here? We have two cars. It should be an open, fun feeling. But yes, an RM would be my dream watch.
Okay. Yeah, same here.
Yep.
So what would you say, now that I have the exotic car experience since I bought one from you, what would you say is like the most annoying part about it? And what I can say about the most annoying part of driving a Lambo and stuff like that is all of the ricers that pull up next to you, and they're like, they won't leave you alone for 15 minutes. It's just back and forth, back and forth. It's like, that's when I roll the windows up and I'm like, I just keep going.
Sign.
What would you say is the most annoying? Just maybe when you're busy, or the conversations that...
I'm really desensitized to, even my business partner, like, he drives just a 2010 BMW 5 Series. He doesn't like the exotic. He's got kids, whatever. I'm in a Lambo or a Ferrari nearly every night for the most part, because it's my job is to show people what I do and meet them. And I really don't notice as much. Like, he'll always complain about people at the gas station, or my girlfriend will always notice it. She'll be like, these guys are all taking pictures of us. I'm kind of like blinders on, don't see it. There's really... What makes this business tough, I will say, is all of our customers, it's their hobby. So think about, like, if you're the insurance guy, no one's calling you at 2 a.m. to, talk to you about insurance and shoot the shit, or whatever. Like, man, what do you think about this new policy that came out? In my world, everyone calls me about my product. And then on top of that, they all want to educate me on it. And they're all, it's like the Facebook thing I was telling you. Like, why didn't you post the car in this group? And, you should have posted a picture of, the center cap. Like, dude, no one cares about that. And I'm not saying like I know
a lot more cars than them.
I'm not saying I know everything, but I do know what works in my industry, and it's fine. Like, I want customers to be a part of the process, but that would be kind of the annoying side is like, you have entrusted us with your car. Let me do my job.
Yeah, I can think of one example right now of like people calling you, talking to you for a couple hours, and they
it's fun. It's fun when they're finding it, but yeah, when it's telling you how to sell it, it's like, okay, how about I just write you a check today? Do you like that number? Oh, okay. The reason it's taking long is because the other number's 20 grand higher, and so it does take a little bit of time. Not everything sells in 30 days. That's our goal. That's where we want to move them all is within 4 weeks, but some cars take longer, especially when you're getting all the money out of it.
Right. So you're strictly in cars right now, and a lot of other people that I follow that are in similar industries, maybe they're selling watches as well as cars, or they're in the private jet game, they're in the yacht game. You know exactly where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
But is it only going to be cars, or do you think that you're going to get into other things? I know you've taken trades on watches before as well for cars, or?
Yeah, I took $125,000 worth of watches at one point on a single trade deal. I've taken other ones throughout the years. Motorcycles we've started doing. It's hard because you need that industry expert for each one, but a lot of it's like, okay, I've got watch dealers that I'm friends with. You've met some of them. I'll get it laid down to them, so they'll give me the number, and it's more You're just kind of dealing. I mean, the funniest trade I took was the guy traded me night vision to finish off. He had like another $1,200 balance owed on his car, as a sports car. I won't say what kind, and he was like, can I trade you night vision for this? Or, you know what? There's got to be a value on it. And I bought it. It was cool. So that's part of the goofy side of the business. Jets and planes are definitely where I would like to go with it. There's a lot of capital needed there, a lot of expertise, and that's not.
I got a buyer out there.
Yeah, there you go.
I know he wants one.
That's all I want. That's my goal. Like the cars, it's hard to be motivated by your own product that you're surrounded by with. So the RM and a jet is really where I'm trying to be at.
And you've been on a couple jets as well. What's that experience like? Because I've never been on there. I'm waiting to go on a trip with some people who've got some money to where we can go halvesies, But what's that like?
I flew like on private jets a few times with the friends of mine that you know of.
Right.
And that it's cool. It's nice to get to skip TSA. It's not at our level. I can't afford anywhere near that in the trips. The funniest thing was another buddy of mine calls and he's like, "Oh, I just bought a plane and this guy's got all sorts of cars. We're gonna come pick you up and we're gonna fly you down to Tampa. So come get on." I'm like, "This is awesome. I'm getting picked up on a jet." Well, I didn't really understand that there's like jets and there's prop planes, and so I'm expecting this badass jet like what I flew to Florida on. And instead, it's this King Air twin prop, like 1982. And we get on and we start taking off, and the plane is like swaying, 200 feet any which direction within the air. Well, he's like, "Well, yeah, my pilot's, 40 grand a year. He only has flown for UPS packages. He's never flown people. So the pilot's a nut job." Then the
shooting black smoke out
the door. I'm sitting right by the door, and I remember it's like, when you have your window just cracked and that wind noise, I'm like, this door's gonna blow open. I'm gonna get sucked out. Like, what did I sign up for?
Yeah.
But yeah, a true jet would definitely be on my goals here.
So you took that from St. Louis to Tampa.
Yeah.
Does that make it there in one trip?
Barely. Yeah, just barely. With one pilot. I mean, it was terrible. So I never did one of those again. Yeah. And, it's whatever. The jet thing is just something where it's more the ease of being able to go wherever you want. And the only reason I sound like an asshole saying I want a jet, not twin prop, is because safety. A jet feels a little bit safer.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I feel like the jets for me, once we buy that Lambo, we always want something better. It's like we always screw ourselves.
Yep.
For the jet. I feel like if I went on a jet, I would never want to fly commercial again. Obviously, there's a lot of money into play there, but because you got to get there so early, and then you wait in this gigantic line, and then you're sitting in some chair that's extremely uncomfortable with your neck like this, trying to wait for that flight, and then you got two people eating food next to you that stinks and stuff like that.
It's time. It's what is your time worth? What is your energy worth? The way a friend explained this to me recently, like the way these big corporations look at it is if we can save 6 hours of that CEO's time and it's worth $5,000 an hour, and then also he's more energized because he gets to sit on a private plane versus going through all the stuff you're talking about, there's value to it. It's a long-term goal for me. I'm a ways away from it. I got a lot of building to do first.
Andrew Tate, I heard him talk about how like you're basically time traveling, right? Because you show up right when the flight's going to take off. You hop in this plane and you go to a different country, we'll say, or state, and the time zone changes, right? So you're basically time traveling. You could take off at 5
Yeah.
and get there at 5.
Exactly. You just keep moving, man.
Right.
That's the goal. Like mobility, my end goal with the business is to put for myself at least, while creating the business, is a way that I can be that movable and flexible with my schedule and jump on and go wherever I want at any time. That's true success to me, not a dollar amount.
Right. So, yeah, it's more of a lifestyle, that sort of thing. Same with me. It's not necessarily a number. It's I want to, we have very expensive taste, right?
Yeah.
And it's as long as I can get those things, money is just the tool that actually gets those things. So, RP Exotics, you obviously have your main location, right? And then you just got a new location because you had to store more cars, that sort of thing. What's your end goal with this? Are you looking to get more locations around the country, or are you looking to just have one big one in St. Louis? What are you trying to do there?
I was dreading this question because it's so crucial when running a business to know what that vision is and where you're headed and what that answer is. And really, I go back and forth on it quite a bit, especially when the first few years were all about, okay, I just got to make a profit. And I got to build up a nest egg. Well, now that I built that up and, the money's not the issue and the concern as much, it's more of how do we sustain this, scale this? What is the best route to go? And there's two options on the table for me. There's either continue boosting the inventory and buying cars, consigning cars, and get to around 200 cars in inventory with predominantly cars that we own, turning them in 30 days or less on very short margins and be high volume. So think about I guess like I said, it's the Dean team here in St. Louis. They've very high volume pre-owned inventory, just turning and burning, but they're not really known for the exotic side terribly much, but they still have them. The other option is to follow suit with just consignments only, like what Gateway Classic Cars did. Mm-hmm. Now they scaled across 22 cities, and they don't own a single car, and they got about 3,500 cars in inventory. So I have a hard time kind of going back and forth on the two. I think one of them is more profitable than the other, but I think one leads to a easier lifestyle than the other. So it's
I know exactly what you're saying, and I honestly wanted to touch a little bit more on this because I've seen the operation, right? I see you guys trying to buy cars. You got guys doing this. You got guys delivering cars to different clients' house, and you got to constantly do that. You're washing cars. Maybe you're talking to customers, that sort of thing. I can't imagine the overhead that you would have in your business. And also, you don't know what you don't know. So you're trying to scale your business and you think you need an office manager or another salesman or stuff like that. And really, if it's an only commission position, that's one thing. But when you start hiring people on hourly, salary, that sort of thing, I'm sure it cuts into your margins, quite a bit, to where like when you're taking those big steps of hiring these people, right, taking on more overhead, like, is it just kind of like what's your thought process going into those things? Like, is it super risky, or are you like vetting that decision very hard before you do so?
We have become better about making database decisions as we've acquired more data, as we've learned how to read the data and analyze it. We're getting better about that. In the beginning, it was a lot of feel, and it was a lot of, I'd go to Alex and say, we need help and we need to hire this person. And he'd go, no, we don't need overhead. And then we'd talk through it and we'd figure it out. And it was like we found kind of that middle ground. And whether it was a part-time or a commission or salary, whatever it was, we found the solution that way. Now the business is at a point where we're using numbers to make those choices. But it really decides, it is a decision on which route we want to go. Do we want to be the consignment guys who focus on that and just wholesale all the inventory so we don't ever have any risk? We fix all our costs based on percentages and commissions, even the porters, or do we go down this, full retail blown, high volume car dealership side? My fear with that is that will keep me more involved in the day-to-day operation, where the other one is a little more...
Right, you're looking at the 120-hour weeks.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that full-blown operation, you don't sleep. It never stops. You're always hustling cars. Issues are always going to come up. And the more cars you own and the more cars you sell, the more problems you have. On the consignment thing, it's very low risk, but there's just less profitability there.
I didn't realize that Gateway, I haven't been there in a long time. That's the place in Illinois, right?
Yeah.
And they have like, a few hundred cars. I didn't realize they were all consignment cars. And they all seem like they're pretty unique or rare cars, right?
Every single one of them's consignment. They do pretty much 90% classic cars, I would say. And they started in St. Louis. They're 22 locations now.
Okay.
It's wild.
Oh, wow. I didn't know they had 22.
22 different locations. They don't own a single one. I mean, think about how great that guy feels. He's probably, $100 million worth of inventory on his website, and he has no risk and no debt. Like the fixed cost, my whole goal, especially the past month or two, was where are my fixed costs coming in at RP? why are they so high, and how do I get those down? You know, how do I adjust that and figure out how to create as low risk where it doesn't revolve around me showing up to keep the place running. And I think that's the key and the difference between like someone who's self-employed versus someone who's a real entrepreneur. You know,
Right.
when you crack that code and the business runs without you, you go travel for 2 weeks and you don't have to think about the costs. I
Right.
think that's when you're in a healthy spot. I'm not there yet.
Yeah, what I was going to say was like basically you have these vehicles on the road, right? And you've had it probably like big bills with these trucks and everything, all the overhead that you bring on to where, you know, I wanted to get more out of that and get more into the tech side of things to where you can become a broker with anything. You can become a broker with cars, junk removal, moving, to where now we're starting to get into those, like building those big relationships around the nation that flip tons of homes, right? To where one of the biggest problems I see in a lot of service-based businesses is they cannot get the amount of leads to be able to scale, right? And you know, it's you run ads and then maybe it's not profitable, and that means you're not going to spend any more money, and you got to do a lot of organic stuff like that. But to really scale it, you know, it's actually hard. Organic. So how do you like the moving business itself? Being in it, because it's a completely different industry, you know, more service side, probably margins are a little bit smaller than maybe, you know, the car business. How do you like that?
You've been friends with me long enough. You've watched kind of my emotional roller coaster with this business. When we started it, it was started out of an opportunity that was there that made sense. And then RP was my baby, where I was watching every cost and every expense and doing everything just perfectly. And at Modern Moving, it was more like, okay, I'm making all this money in RP. I'll just throw the money at Modern Moving and hopefully it'll work itself out. Well, so we scaled it up really fast, but we didn't fill any of the holes and we had all these issues. And you've heard about all my stuff that's come along. Now, fast forward 3 or 4 years later, we found Monty, who's incredible. He's our operator, CEO, runs everything. Like, he is a monster. Finding that key personnel in your business is the best thing you can ever do. And that changed my whole perspective on moving. I mean, we went from doing $1 million a year and barely making any profit out of it and just hating our lives to Monty's on track probably now, I would say, close to 2.5 million, maybe somewhere between 2 and
This
2.5
year?
million this year. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable.
That's amazing. And are the margins a lot better at this point?
Yeah, they're I wouldn't say they're amazing, but they're fixed. Like, we know what they are and they don't change.
Is it like 15%?
Yeah, so it's 15% on the, you know, low end, 17.5% ideal, and 20% if we do everything perfectly. And, you know, so it's a lot of risk in that business, which is what I don't like, because it's the guys, you're trusting these guys to go drive your box trucks, that if they run over a family, like, it's all over, right? You lose everything. And so you got to be really well insured. And that's the only turnoff for me about the industry. But man, as soon as you find a good operator for your business, it's like, this is the greatest thing in the world. You know?
Yeah, you have to find that key player. You know, when I was trying to step away because I had other businesses going on, making, you know, different money in different places, I had to find that right person, right? And it wasn't ideal for the exact situation that I was looking for, because I needed somebody who really had more experience, where I didn't have to be there as much or be able to coach somebody up to learn. You can't just give somebody a company that does $1 million a year and have them manage it when they haven't done, you know, that they don't have experience in that, you know, because then they're learning just like you were.
Luckily, in that situation, you're 100% right. And for me, Luke was there to help guide Monty, because Luke had all the industry knowledge. I had more of the entrepreneurial mindset on here's the things we need to do and the questions we need to look at. And then Monty was the executor. So it was like this perfect 3-man team that right now I couldn't be happier with. I mean, I absolutely love that business. Well, you know, Ryan's the best example. He's awesome. And he truly, if he ever listens, he is the reason I started RP Exotics. Like, he's the one who really pushed me to do my own thing. Even when I was still in high school, he was always telling me, just go do it. And his story's cool. Like, he dropped out of college the last week before he graduated, or the last month, just because he wanted to say he dropped out because his business was finally starting to do well. And he wanted to prove, like, I'm betting it all. Anyway, so the storage thing, his biggest cost there is like a little old lady who's $13 an hour, and she works the gate, and even the gate just turns off if you don't make your payments. And then your stuff, you know, you got 60 days to make your payments. So always take your stuff, sell it, and on to the next. There's no cost.
Have you guys ever thought about tapping into the junk removal side of things with moving?
We talked about it in the beginning. Like, before I was really friends with you and like just kind of meeting you and going out, I'm going, screw this guy. You know, we're going to take him down. Like, let me show you how this is done.
Right.
And then, you know, if I didn't have RP and I wasn't fixing holes in Modern Moving, like, sure, it's a great business. You've proven it at this point. I would have loved to get into it. I just learned over time, I need to be realistic on my time and my
Of
abilities,
course.
and that I can't do everything I want to do, and I can't have 10 businesses like I dreamed of having as a kid, you know?
So I guess that's something I want to lead into, right? Because obviously with a moving business, stuff that goes hand in hand is cleaning business, right? After you
Yeah.
move them, they need junk removed, then they need to actually clean the property, right? To where you
Sure.
can make money in different ways, which adding on more businesses isn't always the answer. But when I look at your business, right, you consign cars, you sell cars, right? You buy cars, all these different things. But I see there's detailers there, stuff like that. Like I've, bought a car from you and I'm like immediately like I need to get the windows tinted or different things like that. Do you plan on at all like adding that type of service or maybe detailing work or wraps, that sort of thing?
So the reason I stayed away from doing that was I watched a lot of guys fail when they got out of their lane. And what's my lane? I'm damn good at buying cars and selling cars. And my lane is not doing clear brawl. It's not window tinting. It's not detailing. And I think, yes, one day I will do it all in-house when I have the energy and time to focus towards it, when I find that right fit. But, I've been in a lot of partnerships now. I've worked with a lot of different vendors. I've realized how important it is to not rush into it when you start involving other people and things that you're not knowledgeable about, to find those right guys. And I haven't found anyone. The opportunity hasn't presented itself yet for me to go, yes, I'm going to get into one of those
Right.
things. So in the meantime, we have guys that we really like working with, and we broker out the service for them. We started a separate company for that, for brokering out transport and shipping. If you need your wheels painted and you don't know where to go, you need your car wrapped, we have one guy who does it all for our inventory. And so now when customers need it done, he'll do it for them too. And he arranges it, he sets it all up, but it's,
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I think that's the tough thing, right? No reason to jump through your shoes to go do those things when you already have so many different things in place.
it wouldn't change my role enough, and RP is not perfect enough for me to take that step yet. Like, I am so concerned with this business being perfect and treating it like my baby and not stepping away from it until I know that I can step away for a year without a worry. Until that day, I probably won't venture into anything
Right.
new.
And if it was a brand new thing that you're offering, right, you're gonna have those mistakes too with the clients you've been working for forever.
Oh my
right?
God. Think about what could go wrong on a wrap.
Yeah,
Ask Vitali his rap story
Yeah.
one time.
Yeah. Well, my rep, when I had to get. You told me you were like, we can't sell this thing. You got to get this
Oh,
thing
the Range
re-wrapped,
Rover?
right?
Yeah.
And I took the wrap off the hood, and what happened is the clear coat peeled off. Right now, my neighbor, he owns their partner and have this wrap shop.
Oh, yeah,
And I was
Mike.
telling, he's Joe, but
Gotcha.
yeah. So basically, they told me that they'll make customers sign contracts or whatever because if the hood or any part of the car has been repainted, that can happen, right?
Yep.
But you don't know. I feel like it's a little sketchy. I know the Lambo is wrapped. I feel like it's a little sketchy. And do you feel that way at all when you're buying a car and you're like, what's under this thing?
I was nervous with your car. I'm like, man, paint, because I don't know what's underneath. And if paint comes off, like, it's
Was
a
it
major-
pink?
No, I said,
so-
if paint comes off, it's a
Okay.
major issue. It's happened a handful of times. It's more them protecting themselves. Like, anytime it's happened, I go, yeah, of course it happened. That car, it makes sense, whatever. But you have a Lamborghini. Like, I sold that Aventador SVJ. The guy paid $800,000 or whatever.
The green one?
No, this is a white one.
Okay.
And he says, I want all the clear brawl removed, and I want you to re-clear brawl it. And I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. Well, then I take it to the shop. They're like, we're not pulling it off, because even clear brawl could pull off that paint.
$800,000 car.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that paint job was like a factory matte pearl white.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
It'd be a nightmare. So, body, yeah, the paint side of things is definitely somewhere I didn't realize would be such an issue in my world or such a big talking point for me. But man, the paint on these cars can be a pain in the ass for sure.
So what's on my Huracan? I was like gonna get it the clear bra on it, and I'm not familiar with the stuff, so I'm like, hey, I took it to somebody. I'm like, hey, is there a clear bra on this? Do I need to get it done? And it was everywhere but the hood.
Yeah,
It was on the whole entire car but the hood. And I'm like, oh, great.
That might have been my guys pulling it off or
Yeah.
something. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe it was the wrap peeled it up or something like that.
A lot of times people will wrap over the clear bra on a car, and I don't know
They
why.
wrap over everything.
Yeah, they just wrap everything they can. But wraps are an interesting deal. The technology is getting better, and it's better than painting your car. But usually we try and stay away from buying a car that's been wrapped because you just don't know what you're getting.
Yeah. So Lamborghini SVJ is my all-time favorite car. Like, are you guys getting a lot of cars at high caliber like that, like the 812, the SVJ, these super expensive exotic cars?
Those ones are usually only bought and sold by me, and it's really how much time do I have put into it. Like for the guys, they're more selling sub 300 grand. That's kind of their sweet spot. When you start getting into those crazy cars, there's only a few at a time, to really be working on and whatnot. But eventually, if all my time's freed up and I can just go do what I love, which is meet people, buy cars, sell cars, consign cars, you'll see a lot more of those. It's just it's a lot easier for me to sustain the store while growing it on the outside with Huracans and McLaren 720s, $200,000 cars.
Yeah, it's probably a little scary too, having a
you got an $800,000 million car. It gets a little terrifying. Yeah, and the consignment thing, like those guys are a little more particular about who they consign with and who they work with. And
are all consignments for those caliber cars? Or
the most expensive car I've ever owned. Probably one of the Aventador Roadsters for like $350,000 or so at a time. Like I own that green Aventador Roadster right now, and that's probably the most expensive car that I've had in inventory in quite some time.
So say somebody had, we'll say $150,000, $200,000. Like, what would you say is the best exotic car for them to buy, right? And when does it even make sense for somebody to buy an exotic car? Because I was always wondering that for years. I'm like, I think I was asking you, like, hey, how much money do you think I need to make to be able to afford this car? Like, what would you say there?
You'd be amazed how many times I tell people, do not buy this car. You should not buy this car. And I told you, you should buy this car. And truly, not because I wanted to sell you the car, because I knew whether it be that day or 3 years later, you were going to come to me and we were going to do a deal there. So that didn't matter. But like for your situation, someone like you who has mastered social media and marketing and branding, it was a no-brainer, and I hope you feel like it was a success with it.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I look at the view. We've already generated well over 1 million views, and I've hopped on sales calls, and I'm like, I'll try to use an analogy on a sales call, right?
Yeah.
Or an example or something like that. I'm like, what are you interested in? Cars. And I'm like, oh,
yeah,
I got this 720 in my garage.
Yeah, there you go. Like, come visit my boy Parker. We'll go drive some cars to Napa and go to the cigar bar.
Yeah.
Back to your question. It's amazing. Like we always can find an option for someone depending on what their financials are and price point. The cars are a lot more attainable now than they ever were. There's a lot of good financing options for them. 90% of buyers do finance on the exotics, I will say. It's super common. And as far as like best car, 150 to 200, if you're just asking me like right off the bat, exotic, it's a Huracan because they're reliable, they're easy, they look good, they sound good, like they do everything really well. McLarens are cool cars because the doors go up. They're gonna be a little more
570
finicky. 570S, they're a great car. Like they're just easy. They kind of do everything well, and those are actually sub 150s for a lot of them now. Ferrari products, I tend to stay away from Ferraris. Truly, if you compare those two cars side by side, the Lambo walks all over it all day. You're buying a Ferrari because of the name. The Lambo.
The name. I assume younger people buy Lambos and older people buy Ferraris, and I think Lambos sound way better than a lot of Ferraris.
It's funny,
unless it's a
it's
V12.
Like 20 to 30-year-old buys the Lambo, and then 30 to 50 buys the Ferrari, and then 50 and up goes back to the Lambo because they're like, I want to feel young again, right? I don't want to be the old guy with the Ferrari, and so like. I don't sell many of the Ferraris. Alex does. Like I sold that F12, but that's not a normal Ferrari. That thing's, wicked. It's
an
nuts.
F1 car.
Yeah, that thing's amazing. The Ferrari, it's very interesting how the buyers for these cars vary so much in personality.
So that was another thing I was going to ask you is like who's buying these cars, right? Is it people who have little, they're like scrape and buy, or are these people like filthy rich?
Dude, I've seen everything. I mean, I've seen that I can't say it, but one of those $500,000 cars I had, I mean, the guy's house like 250 grand, 300 grand. And then there's other guys who have jets and planes and whatever, and it's like, oh, the car's whatever, who cares? I talked to the guy.
Send me your wire info.
Yeah, I talked to a guy who bought a car a few weeks ago, and he's like, man, we were laughing. We're like, he came from Lake of the Ozarks, where the boats out there are $4 or $5 million, and the car, he bought that blue 720. And he's like, this thing's like, compared to the boats and all the stuff at the Ozarks, like it's nothing, So.
Yeah, it's the fuel.
Yeah, exactly.
The fuel for the year.
Exactly. So it's wild. We meet so many cool people. We get a lot of stories. We've had all sorts of issues pop up, but the consignment thing mitigates that a little bit. I told you about the Huracan. The guy shipped me on consignment with twin turbos on it. We're doing a photo shoot on the car, just a video walk around, like never driven this. We drove it 2 miles down the street, and it just stops. And the motor just blew up. Like it was done. Motor was toasted.
Does insurance take care of that? You got to eat.
I called the consignor, and thankfully he is one of the coolest, nicest guys ever. And I said, I promise you, I'm not lying to you. This is exactly what happened. Luckily, we had a video going, like a phone was set up in the corner, and it was recording the car idling, and then you just hear the car go like clunk and turn off.
Right. The first thing they're going to think is, oh, they were just going 200 miles an hour.
Oh, this 19, however old I was, this 19, 20-year-old kid is out just driving my car around and probably blew the motor.
Was that a Performante?
No, it was just a normal Huracan.
That was one of the sickest cars I've
ever seen. One of the coolest cars. And it was right when I opened. Like, this guy trusted me with his car, and I wanted the opportunity to sell it. And I was heartbroken. Imagine that feeling. You got to call a guy, say, your car that's 500 miles away, it's 300 grand, the motor just blew up, and I swear I didn't do anything.
Right.
Like, what the hell? So, that was a sad day.
So what would you, I'm a big Lambo guy at this point, right? Love cars. What would you say is like your favorite type of Lamborghinis? Mercy, Performante.
I mean the Murcielago, like that blue one that runs around town, the convertible, that thing's amazing.
Yeah,
it's
I want
cool.
that one.
Like it's so hard to choose any Lambo. Like I'm a Lambo guy. If all my garage was just Lamborghini products, I'm set. Because you have a Urus to drive every day, you have a Huracan that's kind of a good like in between of that. The Aventador you can drive everywhere and it looks like Batman. It sounds amazing, and the Murcielago is like that true experience. Lambos make the best products for sure.
So would you want to get a Aventador or a Performante if I was looking?
Aventador, and the Performante is easier to drive, a little more comfortable. Like today, I had that matte black Aventador sitting out front. I almost drove it out here, and I'm like, I just don't feel like it.
It wouldn't have been good coming out here.
It's just a lot.
So if you could have any car, what would it be?
Probably an SVJ Roadster.
Okay.
And then a Mazda CX-5 on the side.
Okay. Any certain color?
I used to be a big green fan. I go on the blue thing. Now I'm on a matte black kick. I don't see myself ever being in a position where I have to choose one car. So I try not to have those thoughts. But probably a blue Cepheus SVJ Roadster would be the move. Yeah.
So I know you, like I'm more of a muscle car, right? Or a muscle car guy.
You were when you met me. I
had this GT500 and stuff like that. So what would if you were to get a muscle car, which I'm sure, I don't know if you love them or you'd ever buy them, but what would it be?
I've never thought about that. Really, I haven't spent a ton of time in any of them. I would say like the best muscle car I could say off the top of my head, it would be the new Shelby GT500s, like those 2020s. I picked up one of those, a golden ticket car I bought from a guy in Kansas City, and me and Jonathan went up for a trip. We were just going to go party in Kansas City, pick up this car, drive back. Jonathan's like, and we drove up a Ranger behind. Jonathan's like, I get to drive the Shelby. That's my car. And so he's driving it back from Kansas City. It has carbon fiber wheels. So he's, trying to dive away from all the potholes. And then every bump he hits, he's a tall dude. You see his head just kind of going into the top like this. So, but that was the best driving because it's got the dual clutch and it's fun. And
it's just such a different feel, because I had the 13 GT500. And when you get on it, it's like, I mean, they make a meme for a reason. Like, they're definitely going in crowds and stuff like that. And the Huracan is just boots to the ground. It handles so much differently. It doesn't feel, it feels fast, but it doesn't feel as, like, powerful.
The Huracan's, like, truly the best car. I think 911 Turbo S would be, like, your next competitor to that, of kind of your middle ground, something you can use. That's one of the few cars I've sold that I truly miss. There's a guy who traded me a Voodoo Blue. It's like that Tiffany blue color.
Yeah.
911 Turbo S Coupe. It's got carbon ceramics. It was tuned with an exhaust. Like, just the coolest car ever. Hopefully I can buy that back one day. That was like my fun daily driver for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we're going to wrap up here in a minute, but I want to ask you, have you bought or sold any cars from celebrities? Do you deal with a lot of celebrities?
There's a lot of local athletes here around St. Louis the past year have been out driving our cars, buying cars and whatnot. It's been more local than anything. Like, out of state, there's been a few. I know Gervonta Davis. I sold him a Ferrari F8. That was a funny call because he calls and he's like, it sounds like it's like a prank call almost. I don't. And he says, I'll take it. Or would you do any better on the price? I said, no, I'm not negotiating on this. He said, okay, I'll take it. I'll send the wire. Just email your wire instructions.
Hold your ground.
And I'm like, well, okay, I need a driver's license. Where he doesn't send me anything, so I'm like, screw it. I'll at least send the wire instructions to start. And sure enough, I mean, like 2 days later, I get a call. It's like, this is the manager. We're verifying that these wire instructions are correct. He bought it. So that was probably like the highest level of athlete I've sold to. But a lot of the local guys will come around.
Right. So. Okay. Like me. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Soon to be.
Yeah, soon to be.
Yep.
So if you were to tell anybody, you're obviously very successful yourself. Would you say $38 million worth of cars last year that you sold?
Correct. Yeah. And this year we're on track for just over 50 million.
Okay.
If I
Well, I'm
hit
gonna have
60,
to come
I'd be
buy some
happy.
more cars to help you hit that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So what would you say to like anybody maybe who's kind of like us, right? Trying to start that business, just couldn't figure it out. Just any sort of advice that's going to help somebody get to the next level or start a business.
Yeah, there's been a few things that I totally credit for being the best advice. One is shut up and be a sponge. So when you're surrounded by people who have what you want or are in a position that you want to be in, shut up. Stop talking, stop interjecting your opinion. Just be a sponge and listen to them. And I really did that. I mean, I didn't chime in with customers at all. I just absorbed it all. The other thing is life is for those who show up. Like whenever I have gone and shown up at an event that I want to go to or a dinner because I was too tired or a car show, it's always panned out to be a positive. If you don't show up and you don't get out and you don't show your face and you don't have the balls like you did, I mean, you get more credit than anyone I know from my perspective of like, you've got huge balls to do what you did on Instagram and social media. And if you're not willing to do that, like, don't say you want it because you don't really want it. And then, the other thing is, and my dad used to say this, Andy Frisella would always say is like, just make a decision. Just either left, right, straight, forward, back. Just do something. Don't stay still. And I think that's what's really driven the growth of both of the companies is I will never just sit still. Nothing's ever perfect. Nothing's ever okay. There's always something to be done. And if there's a right decision, a left decision, I'm making one of those and I'm going to make it soon.
Right. And that's the difference between successful people and people who have never made that decision because for years they're trying to make that one decision when it's going to cost you more not to make that decision.
Yes.
But Parker, I really appreciate you hopping on, man. Super pumped to have you as the second guest on the podcast.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah.